Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today?
July. Alfonso's Ice Lollies. One warm summer day, Alfonso the cricket invited Bubble the flower beetle, Berry the snail boy, and Dolly the ladybird girl to his house for the afternoon. "Let's make ice lollies," he suggested. "But what from? And how?" asked Bubble. "It's very simple. We just squash a little fruit and put it in paper cups. Then we put sticks in to make ice lollies. Then we pop the cups into the freezer and wait until they're frozen. Then we pull them out of the cups and they're finished." So they made the puree, filled the cups and put them in the freezer. "We can play memory while they're freezing. I've brought my memory cards with me," said Bubble. The cards were circular with pictures of all kinds of fruit on them. There were 2 of each, and the game was to find the matching card. Dolly realised that Bubble kept winning. "Oh, Bubble, you're cheating. You've marked the cards." "No, I haven't." "Yes, you have," the ladybird girl barked. "OK, yes, I marked the cards, but I don't like losing," said the little flower beetle, and he burst into tears. "I don't like losing either," Berry added. "I've got an idea," the cricket announced. "What if we think up a game where we don't play against each other, but together, like a team?" Berry also had an idea. "Not long ago, Eddie, Balthazar, Morris and I decided to catch a train. We ran after it, but Morris was too slow, and we decided that none of us would travel on the train." "Why are you saying that?" Bubble asked. "Because we could make a good game out of that," Berry explained. "The idea is that all 4 players have to arrive at the train before the train driver. If the train driver is quicker, you lose the game because the train is left without you." "That's a super idea. Let's make a dice," said Dolly, and she painted dots on a wooden building block. Alfonso found 5 coloured stones from his pebble collection. "These will be the counters," he proudly announced. Then he produced a piece of paper and they drew 5 paths, the train and the players' houses. "Alfonso can start from the orange dot, Dolly from the red, and me from the blue, and Bubble from the yellow," Berry explained. "And the engine driver can start from the green dot," Bubble decided. "Let's start!" The engine driver was very nearly there when the last of the 4 players arrived at the platform. "Yes, we won!" Bubble shouted out. "It's time we checked on the ice lollies," the cricket interrupted. Alfonso was right, and the ice lollies were frozen. They all enjoyed their ice-cold treats. "Come on, let's go for a swim," said Alfonso when they had all eaten their lollies. They were soon joined by a visitor as the rainbow fish swam past them. Berry and Dolly asked their fishy friend to let them jump off its back into the water, and it happily joined in the fun. Then the friends spent the rest of the summer afternoon splashing around until they got tired and it was time to go home.
Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today?
Blueberries. One sunny autumn day, Berry and Dolly went into the forest to pick blueberries. Their friends Flutter the butterfly and Eddie the potato beetle went with them. "I'm going to pick the most blueberries," Eddie announced. "Look, this bush is full of ripe blueberries," the little snail said. "I'm going to pick them all." But Eddie jumped in front of Berry and quickly picked the biggest berries. "This bush is full of berries too," Dolly told the others. But the little potato beetle was faster again. By the time Dolly got to the bush, he'd already picked the best of the berries. "Eddie, that's not fair. Don't pick all the berries," the little ladybird complained. Then the friends came to a stream. "Let's build a bridge over the stream. I know exactly how. Let's all go and bring that big log here." They all had to work hard to pull the heavy log over the stream. The little friends made a super bridge together. "It's done," Flutter sighed. "Look, there's another blueberry bush with lots of berries on it." That was Eddie's cue. "I'm going to get there first. Those blueberries are all mine," he shouted triumphantly. But he pushed past Flutter so hard that she slipped and fell into the stream. "Help!" "Don't worry, Flutter. Hold on to me," Dolly shouted and stretched her hand out to the floundering butterfly. But the water flowed too fast and Flutter couldn't reach Dolly. Berry picked up a long stick. "Grab the stick, Flutter," he shouted. But this didn't work either, because the river started to carry the little butterfly away. "Eddie, help! We've got to pull poor Flutter out of the water," Dolly yelled, and they pulled the soggy butterfly out of the stream. "Oh my, I'm so cold. I'm very, very cold. And my little wings are soaked through." "Here, take my jumper. It's all my fault. I'm so sorry, Flutter." "That's very nice of you. But you'll catch a cold too without your jumper. We should collect a large pile of leaves and wrap Flutter up in them." Berry, Dolly and Eddie gathered a big bunch of burdock leaves and covered the shivering butterfly with them. "I'm still very cold and my wings don't work. Look, they're all wet and ruined." Flutter started to sob. The sun took pity on the weeping butterfly and came down close to warm her wings. Flutter's wings were soon beautifully dry and as good as new. "Hooray! I'm all dry and warm at last." "Thank you, sun," Flutter said with a smile. "I'm so sorry, Flutter," Eddie said. "I promise I won't pick all the blueberries next time. I want you to have all the ones that I've picked." "Thank you, Eddie. Why don't we share them instead? Let's hurry home and bake a blueberry pie." The friends all walked back to Flutter's house and got to work straight away. They picked all the leaves off and gave the blueberries a good wash. Spoons stirred and pans clattered until the kitchen was filled with the sweet smell of delicious blueberry pie. The yummy dessert was soon ready. Stanley the stag beetle, Balthazar the bee and Bubble the baby beetle came along to join the feast. The forest friends all sat around the table and chatted late into the night.
Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today?
The board game. It was a lovely spring day and Berry was playing a board game with Flutter. They had to follow a long trail from a mouse to a piece of cheese. "The winner is the first one to reach the cheese," the little butterfly girl explained. Berry started the game. He threw the dice and moved his counter. Then it was Flutter's turn. She threw the dice and moved. "I won," the little snail boy shouted when his counter reached the piece of cheese.
OK, you won. Let's play it again.
Berry won the second game too.
I won. I'm the winner again,
The little snail boy shouted with pride.
Let's play another game.
They started to play the game again. This time, Flutter was the first to reach the piece of cheese.
I won, Berry. Now I'm the winner.
The little butterfly girl announced with a grin. Berry was so upset that he hid under the pine tree, where he threw the dice so that Flutter couldn't see.
I threw a 6.
But Flutter told him off.
That's not fair, Berry. You need to throw the dice where I can see it.
No.
Throw the dice again, Berry.
This time he threw a 2. He got left behind and Flutter won that game.
That's not fair. I want to win. That's cheating.
But Berry, that's the point of a board game. One player wins and then the other wins. You can't win every time.
But I can. I want to win every game.
Berry whined, and he was so cross that he threw the board game down on the ground.
OK, if that's how you want it, you can play on your own.
And she flew away.
It'll be better on my own,
Berry grumbled. He threw the dice and moved his counter. He threw again and moved his counter. And he won one game after another. But he soon got bored of the game. He tried playing the game with his teddy. But his teddy wasn't a very exciting opponent. Berry eventually set off to look for Flutter again.
It was no good on my own,
he thought sadly to himself. He found Flutter playing cards with Dolly, Bubble and Balthazar in the meadow.
Can I play too?
Berry asked shyly.
Well, Berry, you can play, but you're not guaranteed to win. And I wouldn't like you to throw the cards down as well.
Flutter eventually shouted after Berry.
Berry, you can come and play, but only if you promise not to get cross if you don't win.
I promise,
Berry agreed and ran to join his pals. They sat playing cards until it got dark. Berry won one game, Flutter won another, and Bubble, Balthazar and Dolly all won one too. Berry was so happy to be playing with his friends that he forgot to get angry when he didn't win. Stanley the stag beetle flew by and shouted down to them. Look, I've carved a roasting stick. Come on, let's make a fire and roast apples. They all seemed to like the idea. Eddie the potato beetle joined them. They all helped to build a fire, sliced apples up and put them on sticks and roasted them over the glowing embers. The little gang of friends ate up all the apples they cooked. Berry gave his last piece of apple to Flutter. He really wanted to say something nice to the little butterfly girl, but all he eventually said was,
Here, this is for you.
When all the apples had gone, the friends pushed their sticks into the fire and drew pictures with them in the dark night sky.
Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today?
The scooter. One spring morning, Morris the Maybug decided to make himself a scooter. He spent the whole day sawing, drilling and hammering, and when he was finished, he painted the scooter black. Then he hurried to show his super scooter to his friends. The boys were all playing basketball in the meadow. Berry, Stanley, Balthazar, Eddie, Bubble and Alfonso. Look at my new scooter. I made it all myself.
Can I have a try?
No one can borrow it. It's mine.
I only want to try it for a minute.
We'd like to have a go on it too, then we'll give it back. I'm not lending it to anyone, Morris told them again. The boys were so busy arguing that they didn't spot Eddie, who grabbed the scooter and rode off on it. Stop! Bring it back. It's my scooter and I didn't lend it to you. I'm not lending it to anyone. Eddie slowed down and Morris soon caught up with him. Give me my scooter back. Here you are. It doesn't go fast enough anyway. Not fast enough? Look at this. Not fast enough? You can hardly keep up with me, he shouted with a laugh, but he didn't see a big pothole in the middle of the road. Watch out, Morris! Balthazar, Berry and Stanley all shouted at once, but it was too late. Well, you've only got yourself to blame, Morris, Balthazar said in a snooty tone. What happened, Morris? Are you badly scratched? Why aren't you boys helping him? The rose beetle asked the others. It's all Morris's fault. It doesn't matter how it happened. He's really hurt himself and you should have helped. Come back to my house, Morris, and I'll clean those nasty scratches for you. Rosita sat Morris down and washed his wounds with a warm, wet cloth. It doesn't look that bad now. Morris started to sob. It was all my fault because I was mean to the others. If I hadn't been so mean, it wouldn't have happened. Then don't be mean next time. Thank you for all your help, Morris said as he left. It was nothing. You'll feel better soon. Morris limped all the way back to his house. The minute he got home, he jumped into bed and he was soon fast asleep. The little Maybug woke up the next morning with a wonderful idea. He got out his paints and brushes. I'm going to paint you pink. Look at you. I've brought this for you. Thank you for helping me yesterday. It looks lovely. Did you paint it? Rosita asked. Yes, I thought you wouldn't like it black. I love it. I'm going to ride it over to Dolly's house. Be careful. Have a safe ride. Morris walked home and he was about to eat his lunch when he heard a knock at the door.
Hello, Morris,
Balthazar said first.
we came to see if you were feeling better.
Much better, thank you, Morris shrugged. I promise that I won't take your scooter again, Eddie said with an apologetic smile. I haven't got it anymore. I painted it pink and gave it to Rosita. But I can make a new scooter, Morris said. I promised Rosita that I won't be mean again. Everyone can have a go on my new scooter when it's finished. Hooray! Bubbles shouted. Now would you all like a piece of apple pie? I baked it myself. Morris soon finished the new scooter. He painted it dark green. All the friends gathered in the meadow the next day and took turns to have a go on the two scooters.
Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today?
Dumplings. One autumn day, Dolly the ladybird cooked plum dumplings and invited her friends to lunch. Berry came along, and so did Balthazar, Stanley and Flutter. The little ladybird girl put 3 dumplings on each plate. Berry, Dolly and Flutter were soon full.
Plum dumplings. I love them. I could eat 5,
said Balthazar the bee. 5 is nothing. I could eat 7.
7? I could eat 8.
I could eat 10, the little stag beetle announced.
Then let's have a competition,
Balthazar concluded.
Let's see who can eat the most dumplings.
Dolly didn't like the sound of this, and she tried to talk them out of it, but the boys were determined. It'll all end in tears, she warned, but Balthazar and Stanley wouldn't listen. We've already eaten 3 dumplings. Now let's eat the 4th, Stanley suggested, and he plopped another dumpling onto each plate. When they had finished, they put another on their plates and ate a 5th dumpling each. After the 5th, they ate a 6th. After the 6th, they ate a 7th. After the 7th, they ate an 8th. And then a 9th dumpling.
And now for the 10th. Can you keep going?
Balthazar asked. I could eat twice as many, Stanley said with a shrug. The 2 friends ate so many dumplings that their tummies started to hurt more and more.
I'll run and get Dr. Owl,
shouted Flutter the butterfly. Dr. Owl examined them both and gave them a good telling off. What have you 2 been doing? I'm not surprised that you've got stomachache.
They ate 15 each,
Berry said as he counted the plum stones on the plates. And so it was a draw after all. It was a very silly thing to do. You'll only be allowed to eat boiled potatoes for 3 days. But the chimney cake man's coming to the forest tomorrow, Stanley complained. I'm very sorry, but there's going to be no chimney cake for you. Come and see me in 3 days and I'll take a look at your tummies again, Dr. Owl said with a scowl, and he flew away home. The very next day, the firebug arrived in the meadow with his delicious chimney cakes. All the forest friends flocked to the stall to sample his tasty wares.
I'd like a cinnamon one,
Dolly said. And I'd like a coconut one, Berry added.
I only want sugar on mine,
Flutter shouted. But there were also cakes with walnuts, poppy seeds and chocolate on them. Balthazar and Stanley looked sadly on, but they did as Dr. Owl had told them. On the 3rd day, the little bee and his stag beetle friend went to see Dr. Owl. Now let's take a look at you, said the elderly owl, as he examined them both thoroughly. You appear to be better. I can see that you did as you were told. We did, Stanley said with a sob, but I so wanted to eat a chimney cake. Stanley and Balthazar said goodbye to Dr. Owl and were walking home when the old bird shouted after them. Wait 1 second. I've got something for you here. I saved 2 chimney cakes for you.
You went to the meadow, Dr. Owl?
Of course. I bought chimney cakes for my chicks and I put 2 away for you. You did exactly as I said, and so I thought you deserved a treat. Thank you, the 2 friends said with a smile, and they both threw their arms around Dr. Owl.
Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today?
Little kids and big kids. There were 2 football pitches next to the kindergarten. The little kids played next to the pine tree. Bubble the baby beetle was the captain, the little bark beetle was goalie, and the ant boys made up the rest of the team. The big kids played in the shade of the oak tree. Stanley the stag beetle, Balthazar the bumblebee, Eddie the potato beetle, and Berry the snail boy. The little kids played with a spotty rubber ball. The big kids had a proper football. One autumn day, Balthazar picked up the little kid's ball and he started to do tricks with it.
Look at this,
he teased.
Give it back, it's ours,
Bubble whined.
I only want to show you how high I can kick it,
boasted Balthazar, and he gave the rubber ball a mighty kick. He kicked it so hard that the ball burst. Now there's only one ball left. The little kids can have it in the morning and the big kids can play with it in the afternoon, the kindergarten teacher decreed. The big kids kept taking the ball from the little kids. and the little kids would steal it from the big kids. They were constantly quarrelling. Why don't you play together? Dolly asked the boys. Together? Never. The little kids are weedy and clumsy, yelled Stanley the stag beetle.
And the big kids are horrid and pushy,
the little ant boy shouted back. Stop being so silly. Play a match instead. Little kids versus big kids.
How can 4 little kids win against 4 big kids?
The bark beetle complained. All right then. Leapy and I will join in with the little kids. Then there'll be 6 of us against 4 big kids. How about that? The ladybird girl asked. Super! They all agreed. They started to play. They had so much fun that they hardly noticed the time fly by. In the end, thanks to a tricky goal from Bubble, the little kids won the match 5-4.
Same again tomorrow,
Balthazar said to Bubble the baby beetle.
we can play a rematch.
The next day they played the rematch. This time the big kids beat Bubbles' team 4-3. The little kids aren't so clumsy after all, Stanley grumbled, and the 2 captains shook hands. A new boy came to kindergarten the day after that. The little flea brought his own stripy ball and he let the little kids play with it. This meant that Bubbles' team went back to the pine tree and the big kids stayed on the larger pitch. They sometimes played together after that, but they did not count the goals.
Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today?
Pebbles. One sunny summer afternoon, Dolly decided to cook a strawberry cake. She asked Stanley the stag beetle and Balthazar the bee to go and collect wild strawberries in the forest. The 2 boys set off. Balthazar soon spotted a pebble in the middle of the path and he started to kick it along. But Stanley also liked the look of the pebble and he tackled it off Balthazar.
That's not fair, Stanley. I found it. I want to kick it down the path.
It's my pebble now. Find another pebble to kick.
But I found it, so it's mine.
Balthazar moaned. There are loads of pebbles. Find another one, Stanley said, trying to close the argument. But Balthazar wouldn't leave it at that. He pushed Stanley out of the way so that he could kick the pebble. The 2 of them continued to push and shove until they both tumbled down the hill into the babbling brook. Alfonso the cricket came out of his house to see what all the noise was about. What's going on? He asked.
It's all Stanley's fault. He took my pebble.
It wasn't your pebble. I was just a better kicker. That's enough of that, Alfonso interrupted. Come inside, get dry, and then tell me all about what started this silly argument. The 2 boys muttered to themselves as they followed the cricket into his little house. They hung their wet clothes out in the hot sun and sat wrapped in towels while they waited for them to dry. Alfonso gave them both a glass of lemonade and a biscuit. The sun's warm rays soon dried the clothes. Stanley and Balthazar munched sulkily on their biscuits. They told Alfonso all about what had happened and how they had rolled down the hill into the brook. I've got a whole collection of pebbles,
Pebbles, can we have a look?
Balthazar enthused. Of course, Alfonso said with a proud smile, and he placed a large box on the table. Where did you find all these lovely pebbles? Stanley asked. Down by the brook. You can collect some too if you like. They filled their baskets with pebbles. They sat sorting them and organising them until it started to get dark. The little stag beetle and the bee boy said goodbye to their cricket friend and started to walk back up the hill. They soon came to Dolly's house. The little ladybird girl shouted angrily out of the window. Where are the strawberries? Oh dear.
The strawberries.
We forgot the strawberries.
Dolly, look at the lovely pebbles we collected with Alfonso.
What am I supposed to do with them? Make pebble cakes? I asked for strawberries. But we forgot, Stanley admitted, and he told her the whole long story. Well, I see. Let me have a look at those pebbles, if you didn't bring any strawberries. We should paint something on them. This one looks just like a little house. And this one, I might paint a smiley face on it.
That's a super idea. We can invite the others and spend all day painting pebbles.
Great! The next morning, Berry the little snail boy arrived at Dolly's house with Flutter the butterfly, Zephyr the dragonfly, Leapy the grasshopper, Eddie the potato beetle and Bubble the baby beetle. Where are Stanley and Balthazar? Berry asked with a disappointed sigh. Here we are, the stag beetle and the bee boy announced, and they proudly presented Dolly with a big basket of strawberries. Oh, thank you, the little ladybird girl said, and she mixed the cake while the others got to work painting the pebbles. When they had finished, they invited Alfonso to come and see their exhibition. They all look really good. I'll bring my pebbles tomorrow and we can paint them too, the cricket told his friends. When the strawberry cake was ready, they all sat around the table and ate every last crumb.
Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today?
Butterfly Girls. One spring day, Flutter the butterfly girl was picking wild flowers in the meadow. She plaited them into a crown and placed it on her head. Then, from nowhere, she heard an unfamiliar tinkling laughter. She looked right and she looked left, but she could not see anyone. Suddenly, 7 butterfly girls flew out from behind a tree. Come with us, they giggled. Okay, Flutter said and flew to join them. The butterfly girls were all pretty but very naughty. They loved to play tricks on people they met. The first was Alfonso. Give me back my violin, the cricket shouted, because one of the flying butterfly girls had snatched it out of his hands and flown off with it. She played music on it surprisingly well. Give it back, Alfonso complained. The butterfly girl handed the violin to another butterfly girl, who handed it to another, and they all made fun of the poor cricket. Flutter didn't like this teasing. In the end, the butterfly girls gave him back his violin and flew on. They rested on a blossoming tree and stuffed their pockets with sweetly scented and brightly coloured pollen. Then they flew over the boys playing a game of badminton. Look, Stanley, said Eddie. They're so pretty. Balthazar, Bubble, Eddie and Stanley stood staring up at the heavenly creatures with their mouths wide open. But they were not happy for very long. The butterfly girls turned their pockets out and covered the boys in pollen. It made all the beetle boys sneeze terribly. The butterfly girls chuckled and their laughter tinkled in the gentle breeze. They flew on so quickly that Flutter could hardly keep up. Flutter panted and rested on the top of a lilac bush. Come with us. We're going to fly over to the other side of the hill, all the way to the waterfall. It's so beautiful. You'll see, one of them chimed. No, I shan't go with you, Flutter said firmly. I live here. I like my friends, and I don't like playing naughty tricks on them. You go, but I'm staying here where I belong. OK, well, all the best, they called back and flew away. They flew on to new places where they stunned those that they met with their dazzling beauty and then played naughty tricks on them. Flutter watched them go for a while and then smiled as she turned and headed back home. But before she got home, she paid a visit to the cricket. She was happy to see that Alfonso was merrily playing his violin again. Stanley, Balthazar, Eddie, Bubble and Berry were playing hopscotch, and they shouted to Flutter to come and join them. The butterfly girl was happy to see that they had all managed to wash off that sticky pollen.
Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today?
The football match. One morning, Stanley was woken by the sound of someone knocking on his door. Stanley, it's me, Frank. The little stag beetle crawled out of his bed and saw Frank the longhorn beetle. Hello there, Frank. It's super to see you, Stanley said, and the old pals hugged. I brought this for you. A football, hooray! We'll need teams to play a proper game, Frank reminded him. Then we'll tell the others to come and we'll have proper teams, the stag beetle suggested. The two boys called on all the others to come and play football with them. They visited every house, and by the time they had reached the edge of the forest, they had 2 teams. Alfonso agreed to be the referee. We should sew them football shirts, Rosita suggested. One team can play in blue and one team can play in red. The footballers spent the whole week training. We sewed these for you, Zephyr told them, and she handed the red and blue shirts to Stanley. Thank you, the 2 teams said together, and they slipped on their new football shirts. Dolly and Rosita set benches up, and the spectators all sat at the side of the pitch. Alfonso blew his referee's whistle and the match began. That's it, run, Bubble, Stanley yelled.
Here, pass it to me,
Bubble shouted. Hooray! The blue team cheered as they all embraced. Come on, Reds! Come on, Blues! The crowd cheered.
That's not fair, Frank. You can't touch the ball with your hand, the b-boy complained.
Balthazar's right. Don't do it again, Frank. It's against the rules, the referee said. The match got very exciting. The Blues were leading 3-2 when the game stopped again.
Frank tripped me up,
Bubble complained. Yes, I saw that too, Alfonso agreed. I'll have to send you off if you break the rules again, Frank. Stanley's team looked set to win. Frank started to get crosser and crosser.
I'm going to score a goal now, he shouted, and he pushed Berry so hard that they ended up falling over and Frank shouted out in pain. Ouch! My arm! The others all ran over. I'll run and fetch Dr. Owl, Zephyr announced.
If you hadn't hurt yourself so badly, I'd send you off,
Alfonso said.
Yes, I know,
Frank said sadly.
but my hand really hurts.
Dr. Owl was soon at the scene.
Well, you've broken your arm. I'll have to put it in plaster, and you'll have to keep it on for 4 weeks. You'll need to look after it and no running around.
The blue team won the football match.
We'll have to wait a while before we can play again,
Stanley said, and he patted Frank on the back.
Don't be sad. You'll soon be as fit as a fiddle again.
I'm sorry that I broke the rules,
Frank sniffed.
I promise to play fairly when my arm has mended, and we can have another good game of football. I think we should all decorate Frank's plaster cast,
Dolly said with a grin.
Let's go back to my house for a snack.
The big crowd of friends all piled into Dolly's spotty house. They got her crayons out and drew all kinds of funny things on the longhorn beetle's plaster. I'm going to keep it as a souvenir after Dr. Owl takes it off, Frank told them all. Then all the friends sat around the table and ate every last piece of the delicious sponge roll.
Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today?
Spring Sports Day. Berry, Dolly, Flutter and Balthazar were sitting by the lake, throwing pebbles into the water. Berry hit a floating log a couple of times, and his friends clapped.
Come down to the meadow now. The Spring Sports Day is about to start,
Stanley told them all. Their forest friends had already gathered in the meadow. The little beetles all put their running shorts on and stood in line. They all ran as fast as they could. They had to run 3 times around the meadow.
It's not fair. Eddie cheated. He cut the corner.
Leapy the grasshopper shouted.
There's to be no cheating. Let's start the competition again, but no cheating.
Stanley came first, Leapy came second, and Balthazar came third. Berry finished last. Balthazar and Eddie started whispering.
He's as slow as his snail.
Don't make fun of him. It's not nice, Dolly said angrily.
Now it's time for the high jump. The one who can pick the highest apple is the winner,
Alfonso said. The friends took a run and tried to jump as high as possible. Leapy got the highest apple, Flutter got the second one, and Eddie the potato beetle grabbed the third apple. No matter how hard Berry tried, he couldn't even reach the lowest apple.
I can't do it. I just can't do it,
he sulked. Come on, Berry. You'll be better at the next race. Don't be sad, Rosita said. But Berry was too nervous to join the rolling race because he was frightened he'd crack his shell. The others all lined up and rolled from one end of the meadow to the other. Dolly was the fastest and she won.
Now let's start flying, Alfonso said. The fastest to fly to the top of this tree and get a pine cone from there is the winner.
The beetles started immediately. Flutter, Balthazar, Dolly and Zephyr all joined the race. Flutter was the fastest and got to the top of the tree first.
I can't fly either,
Berry snivelled. Don't be so angry, Berry. It's time for the skipping competition now. The fastest skipper wins. The 4 contestants started skipping. But suddenly, Berry got tangled in the rope and hurt himself. The others were worried and ran over to him.
I'm not doing any more silly races. I can't do anything. I'm going home.
We have to think of something. We have to cheer Berry up, Dolly said. You're right. What's he really good at? Rosita asked. I know, Flutter shouted. Throwing!
That's a super idea,
Balthazar agreed.
Berry was the only one who could hit the log in the lake.
They made 5 piles. The first one was made out of apples, the second of horse chestnuts, the third of pine cones, the fourth out of hazelnuts, and the 5th one out of pears. Dolly convinced Berry to come back to the meadow. It's time for the throwing competition. Do you want to join in? Rosita asked. Hooray! Throwing? Of course I'm in. Everybody had a go, but Berry was the best. He was the only one who managed to knock over all 5 piles.
You see, Berry, I'm the best runner. Leapy's the best high jumper. Flutter's the best at flying. Dolly at rolling. Rosita can skip the fastest. And you're the best thrower. Everybody's good at something,
Stanley explained. Berry got a beautiful shiny chestnut engraved by Alfonso, which said, throwing, first place.
Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today?
4 seasons. One day at the end of the winter, 3 bark beetles knocked angrily on Leapy's door.
We wanted to dress up as princes for the party, but the 3 fleas are going to be princes. And that's not good. Our crowns and capes are all ready, but we can't wear them. Oh, please help us. Have you got any ideas what we could wear?
They all shouted at once.
Maybe you could be 3 snowballs because everything is covered in snow outside. It would be easy to make the costumes.
Oh, no. That's no good, Leapy. We'd melt the minute we walked into Balthazar's house. We'd turn into a puddle on the floor in no time at all.
Then you could go as cutlery, a knife, a fork and a spoon. You'd only need silver foil.
That's a super idea, Leapy. But we haven't got any silver foil. And we haven't got enough time before tomorrow to get some. We need to think of something simpler.
What do you say to a camel? That's perfect for the 3 of you. A head and 2 humps.
Yes, but the ants went as a camel last year, so it's been done. We need to think of something new. And what are you going as, Leapy?
The bark beetles asked.
I don't know. I still haven't decided.
The grasshopper girl hesitated.
Then the 4 of us could go together,
the boys suggested.
OK, but what could we go as? 4 flowers? Or 4 devils?
Maybe 4 stars or 4 planets,
the bark beetles listed.
That's not good enough. We need to go with something that there are only 4 of. Only 4, no more, no less. I know the perfect thing. The 4 seasons.
Yes, that's perfect,
the bark beetle said and jumped up and down.
There are 4 seasons. Leapy can be spring because that's girly. And we can dress up as summer, autumn and winter.
They all got hard to work. Leapy sewed herself a pink dress and decorated it with white flowers. She put a pink flower crown on her head. She looked so pretty that the bark beetles all blushed when they saw her. The 3 boys' costumes were soon finished. Summer wore green with a sun on his tummy and a leaf on his hat. Autumn wore all yellow, covered in colourful leaves. Winter's costume was blue, with lots and lots of snowflakes. The next day, they all set off to Balthazar's house for the fancy dress party. The bumblebee was dressed as a fireman.
He warmly welcomed Leapy and the bark beetles.
The 4 seasons have arrived.
Eddie was dressed as a carrot, Bubble as a rocket, Betty as a drop of water, Rosita as a bird, Zephyr as a bus ticket, Morris as a sugar cube, Flutter as a banana, Dolly as a sweetie, and Charlie as a dog. The Forest Friends voted for the best costume. And of course, the 4 seasons won. Stanley came second with his rainbow costume. Third place went to the snails, to Berry and Sam, who came dressed as a train. Everybody was very happy, and the 3 fleas came to congratulate the winners.